All right, welcome back again. Today we're doing properties of real numbers, looking at all the properties. You've heard of most of these before, but also looking at some conversions as well. So let's see how this goes. About one, two, three, four, five, about six properties here. First one is called the closure property. And when you read these, make sure you know A and B are considered real numbers, which we talked about yesterday. And the closure property is kind of weird when you think about it. It says if you add two real numbers, you get another real number. If you multiply two real numbers, you get another real number. Real fancy there. Commutative property, the most mispronounced word in Tennessee as far as math goes. Everybody wants to put an N in it and say commutative property. If you look at it, there is no N in commutative, so it's commutative. All it says is, if it doesn't matter which order you add numbers in, you get the same thing. Like if you add 7 plus 3 or 3 plus 7, same deal. It also works with multiplication. 3 times 7, 7 times 3, same result. You get 21 both ways. So commutative property just says it doesn't matter which order you add or multiply in, you get the same result. Does not work for subtraction, does not work for division. Associative property of addition says it doesn't matter how you group your numbers. If it's all addition, you can group them any way you want to. You get the same result. Doesn't matter how you group your parentheses. Same thing is true for multiplication. Doesn't matter how you group them. That comes straight from multiplication and commutative property, because that's just another way of saying that the order doesn't matter. The identity property of addition means you're adding 0, because if you add 0, the number keeps the same identity. If you notice it started with A, you add 0, you still have A. That's why it's called an identity property. It keeps its identity. The multiplicative identity is multiplying by 1, because if you multiply something by 1, you get the same thing. A times 1, A. 5 times 1, 5. Inverse is a little bit different. Inverse property of addition means you're going to add opposites, and you always get 0. 2 plus negative 2, 0. 8 plus negative 8, 0. The multiplicative identity, you do not get 0, you get 1. That's when you multiply reciprocals. Reciprocal is another word for multiplicative inverse. Inverse means opposite, and multiplication, it means reciprocal. The distributive property, probably the property used most in Algebra 1. You take the number outside here and multiply by everything inside the parentheses to get a new sum, A times B and A times C. Doesn't matter if the A is in front of the parentheses or in this case behind the parentheses. Again, when you multiply, it doesn't matter which order you multiply in, but when you distribute it all, times everything inside the parentheses or bracket. So on this slide, I'm going to ask you, we're going to do the first 4 up here. What property is illustrated? And if you look at the first one, number 3 up there, it says basically, if you look at this side and look at this side, it's multiplication. And all they did is they group things different, so we'd say that's associative. Be careful not to abbreviate associative. The associative property of multiplication. Number 4, right here. If you look at it, they added 0 to 15. It's still 15, so 15 kept its same identity. That's the identity property of addition. Number 5, right here. The 4 is outside of 5 and 25 are inside. Look what they did. They multiplied the 4 times the 5 and 4 times the 25. So they distributed the 4 across the parentheses. So it's distributive property. Distributive. And number 6, if you look at that one, they multiplied 1 times 500, got 500, of course. So the 500 kept its same identity. So that's called the multiplicative identity. And your book just says identity, so we'll just go with identity. Okay, the last thing we're going to do today is look at some rates. Part A here says you work 4 hours and earn $36. What's your earning rate? So you are earning $36 in 4 hours. So your rate, you just do your division there, you'll get $9 per 1 hour. I'm just going to put hour because it's 1 hour. Look at part B. You travel 2.5 hours at 50 miles per hour. So you're going 50 miles every 1 hour, and you're going for 2.5 hours. And so what's going to happen here is the hours cancel, and all that leaves you with is really 50 times 2.5, which is 125. And look at the unit that's left. It's just miles. So I'm going to put 125 miles. And part C is going to help us a little bit more with that one. Look at part C right here. It says you drive 45 miles per hour. What's your speed in feet per second? So in part C, you're going 45 miles per hour, 1 hour, and it wants to change that to feet per second. So what I'm going to do first is change my miles to feet. Hopefully you know that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. If you didn't know that, hopefully you know it now. And the reason I did that is when you look at it now, the miles, I'm not going to do this yet, but the miles are going to be able to cancel each other in just a minute. I'm trying to get everything to cancel except for feet and seconds. So I'm happy with my feet. Now I've got to change the hours to seconds. So before I change hours to second, I'm going to change hours to minutes. So in 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. So now I've got it. If you look at it, my hours are ready to cancel. My miles are ready to cancel. I just need to change my minutes to seconds. So what I know is in 1 minute, there are 60 seconds. And so now what's ready to happen is my minutes are ready to cancel. And so all that leaves me is with a bunch of numbers up there to multiply together. And what I'm doing is I'm going to punch those in my calculator. And what happens when I do that, it comes out to be, when I do 45 times 5280 on the top, and I do 60 times 60 on the bottom, and then divide those, it comes out exactly 66. So what I get here is I get 66, and I have feet in my numerator, seconds in my denominator. I'm supposed to say second in my denominator. If you need to stop that and watch that one more time, please do. One more slide. The last thing is just I want you to, just convert things. And hopefully you know some of these measurements already. Anytime you're going big, a big measure to a small measure, you always need to multiply. Big to small, big to small. We're going to multiply. So 150 yards to feet. Hopefully you know that there are 3 feet in a yard. So I'm going to do it like I did last time. 150 yards to 3 feet in 1 yard. And what happens is my yard unit cancels. So I'm just going to multiply 150 times 3. And that gives me 450 feet. The second one, 4 gallons to pints. 4 gallons times to pints. Now, hopefully you know this. There are 8 pints in 1 gallon. So what happens here is my gallons cancel. So I have 8 times 4 left. That's 32 pints. And the last one, I have 16 years to seconds. So I'm going to take 16 years. This may take a minute. Let's start with days, I guess. There are 365 days in 1 year. Forgot to write days. There are 24 hours in 1 day. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. I'm running out of room, so I'll just make this a little smaller. And there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. Now watch what happens when I do all this. First of all, my year is canceled, my days cancel, my hours cancel, my minutes cancel. All that leaves me with the seconds and a whole bunch of numbers to multiply together. So I'm going to multiply the 16 on my calculator. 16 times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. And I get, oh my gosh, I get this number 504,576,000. So 504,576,000 seconds in 16 years. That's a lot of seconds. And some of you've lived that long. That's how many seconds most of y'all live. So there you go. Hope it made some sense. Make sure you get some good notes. I'll see you tomorrow in class.